All right, y'all, let's get started right away with the sweater romper. First, let's gather all the pieces. We need a front and back piece, the main body pieces. You'll need a neckband. Unless you're doing a hood like me, then the front and back hood piece. The cuffs, leg bands, sleeves, optional pocket and elastic, and snaps. The first things first, as always, put right sides together and do the shoulder seams. I'm gonna serge them. You can also sew them with a zigzag stitch. And once that's done, open them up, and we're going to take the sleeve pieces and mark the tops of them where the curved line is, the center of them, and then place them right sides together over that shoulder seam, pin it in place, and you can also pin either end if you would like to. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And then we're just going to sew right along this sleeve line here and here. All right, so once that's done, flip it so that it's right sides together, and we're going to be sewing close the side seam along the arm. And I was just showing you that the main part that I like to pin right here is where those where the armpit is at, so that those two seams meet up nicely. So once that's done, turn it right side out so you can see how cute it's already starting to look. We're going to take those cuffs, fold them in half, and do the right sides together. Serge those, and while you're at it, let's go ahead and take the neckband and do that as well. However, I'm not doing a neckband. I'm doing a hood. So we're going to put the hood right sides together and sew it along the back curve. All right, so once that is sewn, it is time to put the cuffs in place. You'll be folding over the cuffs so that they are two right sides showing. I'm sorry a lot of this is off camera, by the way, but I like to pin the opposite side on my sleeve and also on the cuff so that there is one side where there's a seam and one side where it's the opposite. So just fold in half to figure out where that is. I did go and serge, or I did a gathering stitch on my serger for the sleeve because it is a little bit big compared to the cuff. So you can stretch the cuff to fit, but if it's not quite working, then you'll want to gather that seam. And right now I just slipped the cuff inside and matched up the two different ends. You can also quarter it if you'd like, but for the size that I'm doing, these cuffs are so small that just 2 pins was plenty for me. And then also take your hood. At some point, you don't have to do it right now if you don't want to, but you're going to want to hem the edge of it, and so I'm just pinning it in place, and then I will take it over to my cover stitch machine. You can also do this with a double needle on your sewing machine. Okay, so that hood is done, just to show you. And then next I went and serged the cuffs onto the body piece, and as you can see, that part's done. They're just so cute and gathered. Now you're going to take your neckline and find the front center and back center. If you are doing a band, you'll also want to find the two sides. But since I'm doing a hood, the front center, back center is enough. So I'm lining up the back seam on the hood with the back center pin, and then crisscrossing a little bit the two front pieces, and just getting ready to go serge that as well. I did kind of pull the sides together and figure out where I would want to pin it in the middle so that I had some more pins in there. So pin as much as you see fit. And then that is all serged in place. Next, on these little ends, I put some stabilizer in there and I just ironed them on. And I did already do a gathered stitch along the two sides of the bottom there because I felt like I need them. Now I'm taking the leg bands and finding the center point because I'm going to match that up with the seam in the middle. So you're going to fold them in half so that they're wrong sides together, and then put it right sides to that bottom piece, that bottom part, so that the raw edges are lined up and then it's two right sides together. And then I stuck a pin in the middle and either end. And I did decide to gather my stitches a little bit more, so I sped this part up a little bit, but you can see that I will be gathering it so that there won't be as much stretching to fit that needs to happen. This fabric could technically stretch to fit, but I just prefer to have it be a little more gathered for me. As you can see, gathering can be a bit time consuming, but I have found that I love gathering on my serger lately. If that's something your serger is capable of doing, I totally recommend giving it a shot. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, but I didn't record the full gathering process just because it is a bit long. So you'll see me just pin the middle and each end, and I'll later go in and gather it. And then go ahead and serge both sides. It's really not that difficult, but you do want to make sure that you are stretching the band to fit, but not the body piece at all. Okay, so that is done. Next, you're going to fold down that front tab and the back tab, and we're just going to do a straight across stitch. I think you fold it up about an inch or so, but just so that it looks good, I guess. And now it's time for snaps. So I love using the snap setter tool, but to be honest, it's the only tool I've used. It's just worked really well for me. So I'll go through some of these parts kind of slowly, and then since it's repetitive, I'll speed it up a bit. The snap setter has 3 layers. You take the first piece, you kind of punch it into the fabric, and layer it on like that. Then put the middle piece down, get your next snap piece and put it on top, and then seal it off with the top piece. I put a piece of corn underneath because I didn't want to, be pounding on my mat. And just take the little hammer and hammer it closed. And I just kind of eyeballed the first row and then matched up a little bit more closely with the second part. Now when it comes to doing the female pieces, I did struggle in the beginning to know which side was supposed to be up, so I'm trying to show you the one that looks like it has the rivets a little bit. That is the side you need to have, yep, that one right there, facing up. The side that looks really smooth goes facing down. I hope that helps. So here is some bonus material, part 1. I wasn't originally going to do this, but I wanted to show you how to do the cinch waistband the 2 different ways. So the first one's with a piece of elastic, and what you're going to do is pin the front center and back center of your of the body piece, and then the 2 side seams are your other 4 pieces, so it's quartered. And you'll need and as you can see, it's all inside out right now. You'll need that to be marked. And then with your elastic, you will also pin the 4 quarters. And normally you would first sew your elastic in a circle, but I'm not really keeping this. And so I didn't want to cut my elastic. So it kind of looks funny, but just know normally it'd be sewn in a circle. So then you're going to match up the pins. You'll want to match one up on the side and then the middle one, and you'll replace the pin that you have there, and then the other piece on the other side, and then normally you'd also match up the one for the the front piece. I think we're in the back right now, so it'd be in the front, but I'm only gonna do this elastic for half, just so you know, so just pretend like you're doing that there. Now come to your settings, switch to a zigzag stitch, and then I narrowed mine to about a 2 or so. Play with it and see where you know, that zigzag is best for you, but if it's too wide, you'll miss the elastic. So that's why you want to narrow it down. And then you're just going to go ahead and stitch right down. So what you'll need to do is hand placement is really important here. I like to grab where I have a pin and pull so that the elastic is taut, so that the bottom fabric is pulled straight. And I am pulling on the elastic, but you're not making the fabric stretch at all. And you'll have to hold in the front and in the back so that it doesn't slip out or anything. But this is like too far, so what I'm going to do is kind of pull it and then find a middle section like I did right there to hold on to, and then pull the next section straight. And I felt like this was a good length, so I was able to do the whole thing. And I'm following, just so you know, the guide of my chalk line. That's how I know where I'm placing the elastic on there, so that's why that's important. And so as you can see, I pulled it first, and then I pinched off the elastic in the fabric where I felt like it was a good amount of space or length, and then sewed it in, and then adjusted again. And each time you have to like let go of your hands, readjust, so that you're not doing any tugging and pulling in a way that you don't want to do it. So just do that till you go all the way around. But once again, I'm just showing this as an example of how to do it. I removed this later, so that's why I didn't really go all the way around. And then here is a quick look at how that gathering looked in the end. It looks great. Because I did use white thread, you can see it, but I don't really mind that personally. So the next method I want to teach you is the shirring method. First you need to hand wind your bobbin. You don't want to have hardly any tension as you wind it. And mine was already wound, so I'm not showing you that process. But I am just swapping it out right now. And one of the important things is to make sure that you do, if you have a bobbin case, you do pull it through all the way so that you don't pull too hard so that you break it, but make sure that you can kind of bounce it and hold it in your hand like that, so you know that it's got the right tension. Another thing is that you will need to pull the thread up, the elastic thread up, and make sure that it's long enough so that it doesn't like bounce back and get sucked back in. So as you can see, I have a pretty long tail there, and that's how you want to start and finish any of your shirring seams, with that long elastic tail. Now we're gonna mess with the adjustment, or adjust the settings. I'm doing a straight stitch. I want it between a 3 and a 4 in length, and then I'm also going to increase my tension. I think I did it between the 5 and 6, and that worked well for my machine. You might need to test something out on yours first, but what's great about shirring is that honestly, once you have all your settings in place, you can just go. So with this method, you do need the chalk line to be on the outside of your fabric so that you can see it, because you want the elastic to be on the underneath, on the bottom. And so I just took off right away. You can see how I'm just following that straight line. And just keep it as straight as you can. You can already kind of see how it's like gathering in the back a little bit. And also I did backstitch. I've kind of seen conflicting things about if backstitching works or not. I tend to backstitch, and then I also go back in and I hand tie a knot to make sure that it all stays in place. So similarly with the elastic, I only did one side, and you'll be able to see the differences between the two. But in the end, I chose the shirring method as my like final look or whatever. Right there you saw me pull that nice and long, because you do not want that to bounce back at all. Okay, so here is a quick glance at the shirring method. You can see that it's similarly very gathered. It looks really good. And then flip back around, that's the elastic side. Okay, here's the elastic, nice and gathered. Flip it over, shirring, whatever it's called. Normally I would recommend doing 2 lines of shirring, just so you know. So you would just do the exact same thing, but like an eighth of an inch or maybe a quarter of an inch away from the other line. But both methods look great. They look really nice and gathered. The difference is that shirring is a little bit of a softer gather, like it feels softer without having that thick elastic. And here's what the inside looks like with the elastic thread versus the actual elastic. Now here's the bonus content part 2. So I've made my daughter a couple of these sweater rompers, and something I wanted to show is because she was potty trained, I was worried about snaps down here, and I've seen a lot of people just not do snaps at all and just sew it up so that they slip it all the way off, which is great, but I didn't think of that. I thought of using magnets. So what I've done is I actually sewed, I kind of like sewed off a casing, or no, how do I explain? I sewed lines here, 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 and here to create a magnet here in the center and on the side, exact same spot as the snaps, and then same thing down here. And I inserted the snap and then I sewed across the bottom of each one. So I kind of did it in an opposite order of how you would normally do things with snaps. And I had to make sure that the north and south pole side of the magnets were in place so that this would nicely meet up. But it did work, and I have tried it on my daughter, and they do seem to stay pretty well. I'm not going to say it's the most perfect solution ever, but it's been pretty cool for her being like a potty trained child. This is the set of magnets that I had. I used them for something else first, but I did use my biggest ones, and these are just insanely strong. You've probably seen something like it before, but they're just these totally thin, but I can't even pull it apart, really strong magnets that hold together well. So because I felt like this French terry was strong enough, or sturdy enough of a fabric, I don't think I used any reinforcement that I can remember. But anyway, so that's just kind of like a fun hack if you would want to try. So yeah, once again, I just kind of sewed the different parts so that it would be the size of the magnet, stuck the magnet in, and then sewed it across the top. And it is tricky because this part of your sewing machine is magnetic, and so I actually stuck a zipper foot on there, and that made it so much easier to get in close to where I needed it to be. So anyway, in case you want to try that hack, that's something that I did on one of my rompers that I'm pretty happy with. So there's a little boomerang to show you how it works. So this is everything. I hope you enjoyed following along. I hope you learned something. Be sure to subscribe, and if you'd like to see more, you can check me out on Instagram at Come Create with Kim.